Om Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Ishvaro Guratmeti Murti Veda Vivagine Vyomabda Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamut Haye Namaha Chal Vedanta Sedanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanantam Satguru Pranatosh Maham Om Shanti 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 Om Namaste. Welcome everyone. So we continue with Panchadasi, chapter 1. We are entering the subject of Maya and its effects on the human intellect, which is referred to as avidya. So now let's see the big picture. It's Maya. So Maya is that which is very difficult to be understood, intellectually. But yet, the scriptures make an effort to help us to understand it. We know that the researchers saying is a cause to the universe. And consciousness, although is the substantial nature of the universe, still it has not caused the universe because it is not an action principle. In order to create anything, we need action, and consciousness is actionless, as we know. So therefore, we know consciousness did not make it. So, and then we have this concept of Maya, which is very closely associated with Ishvara, as we know, and as it will unfold in the next verse, okay? So here the verse 15 says nature, Prakriti, composed by Satya, Rajas and Tamas, is a subtle inert form of consciousness, awareness, that is capable of reflecting awareness. And it is of two kinds. So this is a very interesting statement. First, Prakriti. Prakriti is often referred as the most fundamental aspect of nature itself. It's nature in its potential seed form. It is this very, very subtle, absolutely extremely subtle energy that the universe reflects. No, it is the macrocosmic reflecting medium or apparatus. The macrocosmic one produce the universe, and that is called Prakriti, or the most essential aspect of matter. Matter is, again, it's a pointer to nature. Nature is composed by matter. And of course, we know that matter and energy are not two independent things, everything is energy, and some of this energy is visible to our sense organs, and some are not visible, but everything is energy. So this Prakriti is the most essential energy on which consciousness reflects to produce the world as we know it, okay? And this Prakriti is composed of these three energies, being Sattva, the initial one, the first one. So we have these three aspects, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. And it says that this substance, this matter, this energy is the closest thing to awareness, because it says it's a subtle, inert. Why it is inert? Because everything is inert except consciousness. Consciousness is the only conscious principle. It somehow, it concedes consciousness to the world, and it concedes consciousness to the jivas, to the sentient objects in the world, okay? But this consciousness originally It is the consciousness of awareness itself, and it's non-dual, and it is the only source of existence and consciousness. So it is a subtle inert. It's not a it's not a sentient. There is nothing that is sentient. There is nothing that is self-conscious. Although we say that the jivas are self-conscious, but they are not self-conscious in the sense that they have their body or their body-mind complex originates this consciousness. Now, this consciousness is originated from original consciousness that somehow has a certain affinity with subtle bodies, and every time it pervades subtle bodies, it produces reflected consciousness. Okay, so the consciousness of the jiva, although it appears to be very much coming from the body-mind construct, so the scriptures make it very clear that the body-mind construct is made out of inert matter/energy. Everything is inert. Okay, Maya is inert, Prakriti is inert. Okay, Ishvara, that is pure Sattva, is still, it is matter, it is inert matter, but it is fabric, it's very constitutional. Ishvara is pure knowledge, pure intelligence. Okay, we will see all of that. But here the point is that Prakriti is being presented as a subtle, inert form of awareness. So that is the funny thing about this statement. So we have awareness. Awareness is the only conscious existence principle, let's say, or factor. And then we say that Prakriti is a subtle, inert form of awareness. So it cannot really be a form of awareness, but it is the closest thing to consciousness, is this original Prakriti, okay, which is composed by these three energies, okay? So these three energies is what brings about this macrocosmic reflecting medium on which, consciousness shines or bounces or reflects to produce these three principles called Ishvara, Jiva, and Jagat, the world, okay? So it's a subtle inert. It's not really conscious by itself. It's a subtle inert. It is matter/energy, or energy/matter, but it is the closest thing to awareness. Let's say it's a subtle inert form of awareness, but it's not awareness. Okay? It's the most fundamental, the closest thing, and the most fundamental duality there is this consciousness and this Prakriti that is often related or referred to as Maya, okay? Because Maya is the three energies, okay? The three energies is what makes about Maya. And here it says this nature, this matter, this energy, this Prakriti is composed by three fundamental energies, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, okay? It's considered to be this subtle, inert form of awareness that is capable of shining with awareness or reflecting awareness to produce Ishvara, Jiva, and Jagat. Is that clear? It is of two kinds. Without knowledge of ignorance, you cannot remove it. So what is this? It is of two kinds. It's a subtle, inert form of awareness capable of reflecting awareness. It is of two kinds. Without knowledge, let me see if it becomes clear to me, these two kinds. Has it ring the bell to people, for any one of you here, these two kinds? This Prakriti, is of two kinds. I don't know, maybe it refers to Rajas and Tamas, or Vikshipa, Avarana and Vikshipa, the concealing power and the projecting power. Most probably that's what it is. Without knowledge of ignorance, you cannot remove ignorance. In fact, if you know what ignorance and knowledge are, ignorance need not be removed, nor knowledge gained. So this is a statement that Ramji often presents. I think most of you have heard that, you know. If you know what knowledge is, if you know what ignorance is, you don't need to even discriminate one from the other. Huh? If you know what knowledge and ignorance are, ignorance needs not be removed or cancelled or discriminated, nor knowledge needs to be gained. And the reason Ranji says that is, if you know what knowledge is, if you know what ignorance is, it's enough to reveal to you that you are something beyond knowledge and ignorance. You are the light that reveals what you know and reveals what you do not know. That's the meaning of this statement that Ramji often presents to us, because we know that self-knowledge does not remove all fields of ignorance that remains with the yani, the jiva. The jiva remains ignorant of many things, and the only thing is that self-knowledge brings about the knowledge of one's true nature. But there is an infinity of other fields of knowledge that the yani remains ignorant about. No? So if you know what ignorance is, if you know what knowledge is, so you understood that you are something before or beyond knowledge and ignorance. You are the light that reveals what you know and reveals what you do not know. Okay? So in fact, if you know what ignorance and knowledge are, ignorance need not be removed. This is important. Okay, because generally speaking, people have this idea that, oh no, I have to know everything to be enlightened. And you don't need to know everything. You need to know only one thing, as we know, okay? You just need to know what you really are. So if you know that, you don't need to know anything, because most of the cases we try to know things as a means to remove the sense of inadequacy, insufficiency, and so on. So it means that you don't need to remove even ignorance, or you don't need to gain knowledge, because you understood that knowledge and ignorance, they are the opposite pairs produced by Rajas and Tamas and Sattva. Sattva is going to reveal, it's going to allow us to know, and Rajas and Tamas are going to make it difficult for us to gain good knowledge. There will be a lot of bits and pieces of knowledge, but often subject to revision, error, and corrections, and so on. In order to explain ignorance, the text introduced the idea of Prakriti. Prakriti is matter in its seed form, potential form. It's a proxy for ignorance because its qualities, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, appear and conceal the self. So this Prakriti, this Maya, is called ignorance, and it's a beautiful ignorance. It's considered ignorance because Sattva, although we have Sattva, and all of that is relevant from the stand of the human jiva, okay? So we have Sattva, our subtle body is constituted with a large proportion of Sattva, but unfortunately, in order for it to stand, so to speak, we need to have Rajas and Tamas. So Rajas and Tamas are going to conceal the self and going to, to make the Jiva Atma, the Jiva, look for experience, consuming objects of experience as a means to remove this sense of limitation, this common sense of inadequacy and limitation, the Jiva, due to this concealing and projecting power, it's compelled to extrovert and try to remove this sense of limitation by the gain of objects of desires. Okay, so the text introduced the idea of Maya, Prakriti, is ignorance. Okay, it's a proxy for ignorance because these three energies, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, they all together, they conceal the self. So let's think that we have gold, and gold has certain inclusions there. let's say that Sattva is the pure gold, and Rajas and Tamas are two different kinds of alloys or any other elements that are there included in the pure gold. Okay, so once we have Sattva mixed up with Rajas and Tamas, we have the situation that we call, some knowledge and some ignorance. As we know, Sattva is going to give us the possibility to know, to experience and know, and Rajas and Tamas are going to conceal the truth from ourselves, and most importantly, the truth in regards to the true nature of the world, of the universe, of the self. Science says that matter and energy are one, and we know that, which is true in our non-dual reality. But science has been examining it from the standpoint of objective analysis through its instruments, and have come to the understanding that matter and energy, they are basically the same principle. But they do not tell us, science do not tell us what counts matter and energy. So Vedanta comes to say, okay, so science will never come to understand who creates and how the universe was created and when the universe was created. Science will never get to understand that, because they are looking for those answers in matter, energy, okay? So they will, we say that Maya has created, and then when we say that to a scientist, they say, you guys are crazy. So show me this Maya thing, There is no such a thing as Maya. And then they are going to tell us that it's a philosophy or it's just a religious thing, that does not really stand by logic, and they don't have the refinement or subtlety or spiritual inclination to somehow develop the qualifications to begin understanding Maya and Ishvara as the creator. You understand? Maya and Ishvara as the creator. So therefore we say that Maya creates Prakriti, and Prakriti is the subtle cause of all matter and energy. Everything comes from this most fundamental reflector, this reflecting medium called Maya. Maya, we may, a lot of the times we say Maya is a potential or a power within consciousness that brings about the three energies. And then in the next page, the text is going to say, yes, Maya is but the three energies, So basically, those are very, very subtle distinctions. Fundamentally, Maya is a certain power that does not really belong to consciousness, because consciousness is free of any inclusion. It's one without nothing. There are no inclusion, there are no modifications, nothing. Okay, so Maya is something that it's not real, and it's the first modification that occurs within consciousness, but it is already mithya. Maya is mithya as well. It's something that's not real. Okay, it's just part of the mirage. It's part of the superimposition. It's a part of this secondary apparent order of reality, which begins from Maya, Prakriti, to develop Ishvara, Jiva, and Jagat. So we say that Maya creates Prakriti, and Prakriti is the subtle cause of matter and energy. We know that the three energies, Rajas and Tamas, it's we experience it in our body once we come in contact with the Upanishads and the Gita and the Vedantic scriptures. But when we talk about Rajas and Tamas as energy, so although Tamas is a denser energy, Rajas is a little subtle but still dense compared with Sattva. Okay, Sattva being the most subtle, the purest energy there is. still those energies are very abstract and vague for scientists. Scientists, when they look in terms of energy, they want to measure it, you know, with their equipment and so on, you know. It's a different kind of, we're talking about very, very subtle levels of the creation, okay? So all these other configurations of matter/energy, they unfold and unfold as the universe grossifies from the 5 subtle elements to become the 5 primary gross elements, and then it mixes up to become all the chemicals elements and all the other elements that we find. Karen is in the waiting room. Thank you, Ruth. I was looking, then I said, okay, nobody else will come. And here it is. Okay, let's get on here. So this Prakriti, or this Maya thing, is divided into 3 parts. Each part has a particular guna, okay? So one part of this Maya thing, or this fundamental energy, you know, which is something as close as possible to consciousness, but yet it's not real, but it's from that modification that occurs, you know, which is called Maya Prakriti, and then from there, the whole universe unfolds from the very, very subtle first 5 elements, you know, subtle elements, and then it starts combining, dividing, combining, and growing, and the infinity numbers of names and forms are created. These 3 qualities are called Shaktis, or powers. They create everything in the universe. Prakriti is like a mirror. Although it is inert, it's capable of reflecting. It's called Pratibimba. No? Pratibimba is Pratibimba Chaitanya, is reflect consciousness. And this reflect consciousness that comes to become Ishvara, Jiva, and Jagat, it's only possible by the means of this reflecting medium called Maya/Prakriti or /nature, the most fundamental form, the most subtle form of matter energy, okay? Everything is created about that. There are 3 Shaktis in there, okay? So they reflect on the Pratibimba Chaitanya. You can say that this power, you know, this power of consciousness, I mean, it's a power that creates Sattva, creates Rajas and Tamas. So it must be something very, very close to Satya, you know, because it's somehow, it's capable to produce Ishvara, which is just this self-conscious being made out of pure knowledge, you understand? And knowledge is nothing but consciousness. So although it's inert, it's capable of reflecting awareness. You can say that this Prakriti, this Maya, it's somehow, it borrows awareness, okay? It somehow, it does not have its own source of conscious existence, but it somehow, it pulls from conscious awareness, you know? So, and then out of this thing, it somehow, it creates Ishvara, Jiva, and Jagat. So what is Ishvara? Ishvara is when consciousness, when awareness reflects on this aspect of Maya, this aspect of Prakriti, which is dense with Sattva. It's called Sattva Pradana Prakriti. So the Sattva Pradana Prakriti is the aspect of Maya that is dense with Sattva, that once consciousness shines or reflects on that aspect, it creates what? It creates Ishvara, okay? Because we have consciousness, and then we have the aspect of Prakriti, which is filled with this power, this Sattva power, and that is what creates Ishvara. And just as we mentioned that, so the other aspect of this macrocosm apparatus or reflecting medium is the Rajas aspect of Maya, of Prakriti. When consciousness shines in that aspect of Prakriti, it creates the Jivas. The Jivas are consciousness reflecting on the Rajasic aspect of Prakriti. It's called Rajas Pradhana Prakriti, what creates the Jivas, okay? And on the same line of thought, we say that consciousness, when it shines in Tamas Pradhana Prakriti, in a predominance of a tamasic predominance in this macrocosm, Prakriti creates the universe, okay? Because tamas is a denser energy. You can say that this Prakriti, this Maya borrows awareness. It is an object known to awareness, although awareness is not a knower of objects. But when we look from our perspectives, from the perspective of the Jivas here, so we look, okay, it is an object in reference to consciousness, okay? So consciousness is not a knower, so it is more or less irrelevant. It has certain relevance when we understand that the Jiva Atma is Paramatma, and then the Jiva Atma, and only the Jiva Atma can claim its nature as consciousness and say, okay, Maya too is an object in relationship to me, awareness, okay? That's the only point that this statement is really relevant. It says here, it presents an analogy, it says, so this fundamental energy is like space. It contains all objects, including space. So space itself, okay, is an element. We know it's a subtle element, but still it's a dense element, you know? So it's included space. It feels like space because it's the most pervasive thing in media is this Prakriti, you know? It's the essential nature of the universe, you know? So this is all pervasive in media, and somehow a little bit like space in relationship to the other four elements. Space is going to pervade the other four elements, okay? Air, and fire, water, and earth. So likewise, this Prakriti is like space. It contains, it accommodates, it pervades, it permeates everything, including space. Okay, because Maya is subtler than space. Space is a, unfoldment, a grossification of the subtle elements. The subtle aspect of the five elements brings about this space. Okay, so of course, Maya, Prakriti, is much subtler than space, but it has this similar. In order to help us to understand its pervasiveness, we say like it's a bit like space. Everything is contained in that, including space, which is something, we think like space is the most subtle aspect of the media, but no, it is Prakriti, okay? On the level of the macrocosm, these three powers are responsible for everything that exists. Sattva, as we know, provides knowledge, the intelligence, the know-how, the design of the universe. Tamas provides the physical material substance, and Rajas is the projecting, transforming power that makes things really transform, convert, and so on. So you have an idea, you have the know-how, you have the design, you have the footprint of the universe, but yet you need the physical raw material and you need some energy so that you can bring that idea into creation. Tamas provides the substance and Rajas transform the substance in accordance with the design, accounting for all objects. Creation is an interesting type of transformation. This is another concept that we all know, most probably, but it's important for us to clearly understand that creation is a very interesting type of transformation, because we have consciousness. Consciousness is there doing nothing because it's not a doer. Therefore, it cannot do. And in order to create something, you need to transform something into something else. You need to have energy and raw materials and good ideas. And consciousness is there just as a witnessing conscious existence principle. So consciousness is not doing anything. But yet, we say that creation is an interesting type of transformation, because the very, very source of the universe is consciousness, okay? Because the universe is not real. Consciousness is the only reality. So this projection, this superimposition depends on consciousness. And consciousness is the causeless cause of the universe. It's causeless because nothing has caused consciousness. Consciousness being the only reality, it does not require causality. There is nothing that causality is within the realm of media. Everything impacting and cause reaction. Every action produces a reaction and so on. So consciousness is there. Nothing has caused that. It belongs to a different order. It's Satya, the only reality. And then it comes this apparent order of reality, which is all based on cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. So we say that this universe, it was created or caused in a very interesting way. It begins with consciousness, and then consciousness somehow, without doing anything, finds itself with Maya before itself, and then Maya, boom, projects this universe. So Maya is blamed to be the creator, okay? I mean, Ishvara as well is very close to Maya, because Maya first has to provide Ishvara with the knowledge, and then knowledge, Ishvara is going to manipulate and manage and all the other energies and start creating all these, configurations. But fundamentally, consciousness is used, the existence and the knowledge existence of consciousness is used to create the universe. So it's almost as if consciousness is going to be transformed into the universe, okay? So when you say that consciousness was transformed, converted, into the universe, and then the first thing that we think, okay, and we hear that on different circles. So that's when God becomes the universe. Consciousness does not become the universe. Understand? It's a different kind of creation. Consciousness does not create, Maya Shvara creates, but everything happens within the scope of consciousness, and then it appears that we have a universe, and the substantial nature of this universe is consciousness. It's Satchitananda, it's consciousness. So consciousness is substratum of this universe. We know that everything was born from consciousness. The existence of this apparent world, the nature of this apparent world, the consciousness of all conscious creatures in the world, everything comes from consciousness, as if consciousness has become the universe. But it says that it's a very different type of transformation. Consciousness, the self, does not become the creation in the sense we know. You understand? When we have a certain substance, and then we transform this substance into something else, and the most classic example of Vedanta is to transform the milk into cheese. When we transform the milk into cheese, and then we say, oh my God, the cheese became the milk. So what does that mean? It means that you cannot find the milk anymore, because the milk became the cheese, okay? So in the case of this universe, consciousness does not change. It does not become something else. It does not get transformed into something that it remains absolutely unaffected, okay? And why? Why? Because this transformation is not real. You understand? Because this universe belongs to media, that which is a mere appearance. So therefore, consciousness has no problem with these superimpositions created by Maya Ishvara. It appears as if consciousness, awareness, the self became the universe, and we say God became the world. The world is the body of Ishvara. Ishvara is also the material cause and is the manifestation of the universe. That we can say in reference to Ishvara, but never in reference to consciousness, because consciousness belongs to Sattva, to Satya, and Ishvara, Jiva, and Jagat to Mitya. Even Ishvara, when we say Ishvara is the intelligent cause, it is the energetic cause, it is the physical material, raw material of the universe, Tamas, and it somehow projects it, and then somehow we can see God, we see the manifestation, the crucifixion of the energy. We can see anybody who has developed a certain spiritual vision of the world, can see that this is a beautiful world and everything here is God, because everything is so intelligently designed. And we know that God is this beautiful intelligence, this order, that follows its laws, its natures, its rules to perfection. And so it is a very unique kind of manifestation, because the fundamental cause of this universe does not do anything and does not really become, because the cause of the universe, the fundamental true cause of the universe is Satya, and the universe is Mithya. Mithya is not real, you understand? So it appears that Mithya is somehow impacting Satya, because we take the mind to be, Satya, but the mind is Mithya. The mind gets affected by anything, like anything else in Mithya. In Mithya, everything is impacting and affecting and cause change and transformation in everything else. Consciousness does not become the creation. If it did, it would cease to exist as consciousness, and there would be no sentient beings and no movement and creation. So this last statement here is interesting. If consciousness would become the physical material universe, and then we would not be able to see what? Animation and intelligence in the world, We will not see jivas, we will not see the plants, we will not see the beauty of this intelligently designed universe in which every part, responds to its environment in accordance to its nature, its program. So everything would not be there. We will not see sentient beings, and we will not see any movement. It appears as the creation, vivarta parinama. So it appears as the creation, but it never became the creation. The creation is just a superimposition on consciousness. And the superimposition is like a mirage. It's something that is there, but it's not real, okay? Therefore, it will never impact consciousness. It will never impact the self. The self will never change. It starts to become matter because the self is altogether the only reality. And all these projections, they are just an apparent reality produced by Prakriti, Maya. The macrocosmic reflecting medium. So here it says, as above, so below. On the level of the individual, Sattva is responsible for thinking, knowing, perceiving functions. So we want to understand now on the level, on the microcosmic level, which is the level of not consciousness or not Maya itself or Ishvara itself at the macrocosmic level, but we want to see at the level of the Jiva, okay? The micro self. The micro self is Jiva. So on the level of the individual Jiva, Sattva is associated or related to clarity of thinking, clarity of vision, of knowing, of perceiving functions of the sentient being. So it is responsible for everything, that every creature that responds to its environments, it is a jiva, and it is a jiva because it is being moved by sattva. Sattva is impacting the subtle body of every cockroach or every insect, because even the plants, because it has this sattva shakti, this jnana shakti. It is the power of knowledge, jnana shakti. It gives pleasure and it reveals. So it gives pleasure and it reveals, because these creatures, especially, I mean, it's mostly relevant to the human jivas, because all other jivas, they don't have the concept, at least we don't know exactly how they experience the world. But you never really can tell that they are having great pleasure or great happiness. You don't see a dog or horse or any one of these animals, expressing happiness or incredible joy or bliss or something. So this pleasure refers to the jiva, because the jiva has these sense organs, and it develops preference to certain objects, and favorable object brings pleasure. And it is the power that reveals the object, is the illumining power, the light, that illumines and knows. So we know, and we know by the means of the light of consciousness that somehow shines or reflects in the subtle body of the human jiva. Okay, this is the knowing power, the jnana shakti. It has also, on the level of the individual, another power that is kriya shakti, which is related to rajas. Rajas is what allows us to do things without this energy. As we know, as we grow very old, our rajas energy, our rajasic level decrease, and then one becomes what? One becomes more and more tamasic. Oh no, I don't feel like doing anything. So the big challenge is to grow old, knowing that you're gonna leave this kriya shakti, but yet holding jnana shakti, so that you don't go down to become just tamasic. So if you become too tamasic, and then you may not suffer too much, but you're not going to live with the joy, because the joy comes from sattva, the ability to shine with consciousness and enjoy your true nature, by knowing who you are, or by knowing and interacting, knowing with the other objects in the field. Rajas is the doing function and the projection function as well. So we project things all the time in our minds. So I get up in the morning and say, how about my day? So I need to plan my day. So I'm gonna do that at 9, and then at 10, 11, 12. I have somehow project my day, and now I'm going to follow up and try to accomplish all my goals. So we have this power. This power is not only about doing, but it's mentally, creating, projecting, organizing, and keeping things in perspective. This is the kriya shakti. Together with tamas, this rajas is responsible for erroneous knowledge. So from the standpoint of the jiva, the sattva is responsible for knowledge, for jnana shakti, So this sattva is which allows us to know things more appropriate, more precisely, and in due time to investigate, to know that which frees the jiva from the need for more and more knowledge, you know, as a means to resolve oneself. But the point here is that together with tamas, these rajas, it makes a condition which is responsible for erroneous knowledge. Okay, so erroneous knowledge is due to the fact that the jiva, being a reflection of consciousness on the microcosmic reflecting medium, the so-called Sattva body, you know, consciousness is going to shine or reflect on this micro reflector, which is the Sattva body of each jiva, and depending on the proportions, depending of the quality of that reflecting medium, this jiva is going to be constituted by more clarity, more agitation, more projections, more anxieties, or more inertia, or more apathy, and so on. So depending on the quality of the Sattva body, we're going to have jivas with different nature, different characteristics, okay? So when we have a Sattva body, which is under the influence of more unnecessary, let's say, rajas, and
It's coming back.
okay. It's strange. My internet has been good lately, but now it whoop, collapsed, but thanks God it came back. So we were saying that together with tamas, rajas is responsible for our inability to really understand what's going on. So we don't have any clue about the nature of the universe, the nature of the I, the self. We don't really, we cannot even do proper readings of, you know, of events that happens in our environment, you know. There are so many factors, and our mind is there, you know. It has some sattva, which gives us the possibility to understand a few things, but there is a lot of rajas projecting, you know, anticipating, you know, and tamas, which is like, you know, concealing and obscurating, you know. And then in that condition, we live in a kind of a twilight zone, as we say, you know. It's like the man passing by the village at the end, at the very late afternoon, in which there is some light and there is some darkness, and he cannot really understand whether he's coming close to a snake or a rope. Why? Because there is too much rajas and tamas, too much ignorance, too much, you know, light and darkness. Darkness, a little bit of light, but a little bit of darkness. As we know, if there is only light, which is the analogy of Ishvara. Ishvara is pure light, pure knowledge, and then there is no problem. If we have only darkness, if we have only not knowing, if we are in deep sleep, in which there is no sattva, there is no ability to know anything, we are in a totally tamasic state as a prana. So when we are in that, we have no problems as well. But the problem of the human jiva is that he has some light and some darkness operating in his universe. And that is due to rajas and tamas, which seems to be something we cannot, unavoidable, you know, inevitable. So in order for the jiva, for this intellect to exist, some constitutions, the constitution has to be such that rajas and tamas have to be there. So that way we have this condition. Yeah? Tamas is inertial. It's not capable of knowing, and is not only unable to know what's going on, but what happens with tamasic people. They have a hard time to come out of the couch, you know. They seem to have a much stronger gravity force operating on them, because they drag themselves like that, you know. They are just you know, they are heavy. They are not capable of doing many things and knowing things. Okay, denial is a manifestation of tamas. So when you see someone who is denial, oh no, yeah, tomorrow, this and that, no, all is okay. So it is a varana shakti, okay? This power that conceals, reality, conceals what it is. And we are looking here from the standpoint of samsari and the way the samsaris are composed, So some samsaris are more sharp, more clear, more knowledgeable, more intelligent, more sharp. And then some of them are all over the place, extremely rajasic and making a lot of mistakes, but still they have enough energy to get by and accomplish things, in spite of being stumbling here and there. And then we have this third category of human jivas, which is the most serious case of samsaris, which is the extreme tamasic ones, because they can't really figure out what's going on. They don't know what they want. And furthermore, they don't have the energy to do things. You are never going to find a real tamasic person in a Vedanta circle. It's, I have been with Vedanta since now maybe 7 years and sharing this scriptural knowledge here and there. And I haven't met a person who is very tamasic. Tamasic people does not even come close to Vedanta. You find a lot of rajasic people who is at good point. And now I have a lot of energy here. Now I have to somehow convert some of these rajas and sattva. But if the person is totally tamasic, forget it. So it does not have enough energy to process spiritual purification, growth, development.
But Arlindo, I have a question about that. So it's Rajas and Tamas, like a mix of the two that really is wrong understanding, wrong knowledge.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes.
That's what it's saying, yeah.
Yes. So when you have a lot of energy running through your body, let's say, okay, so you feel like you are compelled to move. You want to do something. You don't want to sit or lie down. You want to go and do things, get things done, right? You have a lot of energy. When this energy is too much, what happens? The mind loses focus, loses perspective. And then when you see there are so many thoughts coming, and then when you see you are trying to accomplish 3 jobs at once, so you are all over the place. You are like that, and then anxiety sets in, and then the person, of course, has its sattva guna compromise, because excess of rajas also compromise our intellectual faculty. You understand? So this is a rajasic person. It has a lot of energy, and sometimes it does not work well. It backfires because you have so much energy, but you're dispersive because your mind is jumping from one project, one thing, and it's very common that we begin projects and we do not finish them. So those are all characteristics of people who are extremely rajasic. Okay, so and then it's common sense, it's common understanding. If my mind is too agitated, it somehow it makes it more difficult for me to understand what I'm doing, to stay focused, to do a good job. It's usually when we make a lot of mistakes, we cut our fingers, we make a car accident, or or we stumble on the staircase. So when we are like that, you understand? The other day I was rajasic here, and I said, okay, let me go and jump into the river. I'm privileged to have a nice pool a few minutes from my home here. And then I went there, and I have one of those, how you say, masks for swimming. I put it up here, and I went there with my glass, and then I jumped. Boom. When I jumped, I felt something like that. And then when I came out of the river, I thought, where are my glasses? Where are my glasses? So I was rajasic, and I forgot to take my glass. and leave it outside of the pool and go in. I just put my mask, I jumped with my mask up and with my glass here, you know, and I lost my glass. You understand? So those things happen when we are, you know. So what happened with a tamasic person? A tamasic person also is subject to a lot of mistake, okay? The only difference is that the Rajasic people is a doer. It has this enormous amount of energy that compels him or her to do many things. When you do many things, and then what happens? You are more subject to error because you are doing many things, especially when you are doing when your mind is really too stressed out. Yeah? So the tamasic person, it does not have energy to do anything. And then we say that the tamasic people does not make as many errors than the Rajasic, because the Rajasic is doing many times, a lot of things. The tamasic people is there, no, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not doing something. So the it appears that the Rajasic person is in a more difficult condition because he makes mistakes and he experiences the discomfort of mental, emotional agitation. But at least he has this energy. He's alive and he's going to experience a lot of pain because Rajas is very painful, okay? But he has his energy that allows him to implement change, progress, growth, okay? But the tamasic person, although it's not subject to many papakam, the Rajasic person, the extremely Rajasic person makes a lot of mistake and brings about a lot of conflicting karma. And he's going to have to deal with a lot of papakam, the Rajasic person, conflicts, results which are not really good, nice, pleasant, you understand, and favorable. The tamasic person, it almost does not have papakama. It has much less papakama. Why? Because it does not do things. If you don't do things, there is no question of result of action. You understand? If I stay in my small little place, you know, watching stupid moves all the time and drinking Coke and those bags of fast food, you know, and feeling sick half of the time and sleeping a lot. So what kind of papa karma? I'm not really subject to a lot of papa karma because I don't do karma, okay? But regardless, the tamasic person is the one in the most critical condition as far as this process of growth, of spiritual elevation, growth, you know, improvement, betterment of the self, of this Jivatma. So these are all aspects we can look to understand how tamas and how rajas affect our ability to know caring, and how much we are impacted, you know, by these two energies. But it does not mean to say that rajas and tamas are something like the evil has created. No, we need the projecting power, and we need the tamas energy as well. You understand? We need to calm down, to stay grounded, to breathe sometimes, and to take it easy, and to have a good night of sleep. And sometimes when the body gets sick, and then Ishvara says, okay, now your body's sick, I'm going to put you to sleep for 12 hours a day because I need to restore this body here. So he makes our minds also very tamasic. I mean, last time I was ill, I remember I couldn't do my Vedanta thing because my mind was tamasic, you understand? In that condition, all I want to do was to lay and to, at the most, to watch some stupid movies because my body mind was totally tamasic, you understand? So we cannot do much, we cannot know much, we cannot even do our Nididhyasana or Shravana when the body is very weak, his tamas, the mind. I know people who have been studying with me since a while here in Brazil, but they grew old. One is a very close friend of mine. She's 80 now, and her body became weaker. And she tells me, she calls me Naga. I say, Naga, I can't do it anymore. I can't do it. I'm tired. And then my mind is somehow in a condition that I don't understand what you're talking anymore when I try to listen to you. You understand? So the mind, can become tamasic to a point that we can't really do our Vedantic work anymore. That's the important for us to do this work while the body mind is still vital, is still vibrant, with a good balance between these three energies. And we know we want more and more sattva in order to do this work. But we still, as householders now, I guess Gert is a householder. He looks very young. He has a family, maybe. So he needs to have his Raja side by side, you understand? And he has to get things done and so on. And then Tamas is important as well because he wants to have a good night of sleep. And then that's the condition of the householder trying to, to establish this hard and fast self-knowledge. We need to juggle and play and manage these three energies according to our moment-to-moment actions or accomplishments or things we need to do in life, you understand? And sometimes it's not very easy to shift from Rajasic mental state, having a Rajasic day, and then we say, okay, now I want my Sattva back, calm down, So people can do all kinds of plays or sadhanas or practice to somehow to tune the mind from Sattva to Rajas and so on. And I am fortunate because somehow every time, I was having a kind of Rajasic day doing things, and I came from town just 20 minutes ago, but once I begin doing these expositions of this, my mind quickly somehow drops the level of Rajas and somehow produce more Sattva. I don't know. I guess you guys may experience the same thing. When we come together in this class, I don't know if you have notes, the mind just tunes with this energy of the scripture, and then Sattva, and then we see, your energy has changed. Can we carry on, Karen?
Oh, thank you. I forgot to unmute.
Okay.
Yes, we can carry.
Tamas is responsible for erroneous knowledge, is responsible for no action, wrong actions as well, The problem with Tamas is that Tamasic people, they still have desires. You understand? Because a human being is moved by their desires. So it's not to say that Tamasic people do not have desires. They have desire, but they don't have energy to go play by the rules and try to accomplish their desires. And then the tendency of Rajasic people is to break the rules, to violate Dharma, to cut corners and deceive and cheat, and do all kinds of tricks. And you see it in the political arena here in Brazil. They want what they want, but they want to cheat and deceive and steal and so on. Denial is a manifestation of tamas. It's called a Varana Shakti. It conceals. And a Varana is like a cloud, okay? It covers, it's somehow, it's a fog. When you drive in the winter, in Europe or in the USA, when there is these areas of a lot of fog, when you enter one of those fogs, it's like, oh my God, this is a cloud of tamas. I cannot see what's going on here. It's like a cloud, it's a foggy thing. A dual mind is a tamasic mind. It hides the truth. It cannot really see, what's coming, and cause erroneous knowledge, just as clouds hide the sun. So those are the energies. These energies, we have to understand that on these three energies, the avarana or tamas, it appears as concealing something and producing erroneous perception, erroneous knowledge. So what it conceals is sattva, okay? We have to make this distinction here. It's Rajas and Tamas does not conceal consciousness. The self is not concealed by Rajas and Tamas, but sattva energy is concealed by Rajas and Tamas. When we say that as seekers of moksha, we need to cultivate and develop more and more sattva. So sattva can be developed only by conversion of tamas to rajas and rajas to sattva, rajas to sattva, rajas to sattva. You understand? Because sattva is the background, is there all the time. Sattva is pervading rajas and tamas, but when we have too much rajas and tamas, it appears that rajas is concealing and tamas is making us not really see things for they are, because the mind is like that. You understand? But we have to understand that consciousness is not affected by rajas and tamas, only sattva. And that's why we need to work our lifestyle, among other things, to develop somehow a lifestyle which is conducive to this cultivation and conversion of tamas to rajas. If the person is to tamas, which is not the case with us. If the person is to tamas, it does not come, she or he does not come to Vedanta. So we are either very sattvic or we have some trouble with rajas. And then all we need to do is to keep converting rajas into sattva. And Claudio knows that because we have had some conversation about that, huh, Claudio? Tamas is not convertible to sattva. No, it does not exist a conversion direct from tamas to rajas. It has to be converted to rajas and then from rajas to sattva. It's a progression of subtleties. You know, the mind has become subtler and subtler from tamas. It will never going to jump. It has to go by the same way the self-knowledge has to go by Kama Yoga and Vipassana Yoga. It has to go through the conversion into Raja Guna. Okay. When the Sattva element is pure, when it is not mixed with Rajas and Tamas, Prakriti is known as Maya, and this Maya goes to Ishvara. There is a lot of subtleties of usage of these two words. When the sattvic aspect of this Prakriti, when the sattvic aspect is very pure, when there is very little Rajas and Tamas. I say very little Rajas and Tamas because in some of the classes with Swami Paramarthananda, he says that below the line of Maya, when the three energies come into play, there is no such a thing as 100% pure Sattva. There is a huge predominance of Sattva. There is some huge predominance of Rajas and a huge predominance of Tamas that is going to give birth to Ishvara, Jiva, and Jagat, respectively. How do you say? Respectively. Respectively? Respectively, yeah, respectively. So when the Sattva element is pure, when there is not much Rajas and Tamas, Prakriti is known as Maya, Maya Ishvara. Why Ishvara? Why Ishvara? Because the universe, we say the Ishvara begins what? Ishvara begins with its efficient, intelligent cause. And the efficient, intelligent cause of Ishvara, as we know, because Ishvara is also the universe and the laws by which this universe is maintained and destroyed and recycled from moment to moment. So all of this is Ishvara, this beautiful, intelligent order which is manifest in physicality, which remains in its cement, in its seed form as pure knowledge, pure sattva. Okay, so when the sattvic element is pure, and then we have Ishvara as the creator, the sustainer, the laws governing, and the universe manifest. All of that is what we call Maheshwara. So we're talking of creation now. The teaching shows how samsara is caused. As we know, samsara is the belief that the duality caused by Maya is real. So every human being in this planet, before they come to this scriptural knowledge, somehow, or some fragments of the scriptural knowledge here and there in the spiritual world, there are a lot of different teachers, you know? And they most of the time they present bits and pieces of this spiritual knowledge. So before the person comes in contact with these statements that says everything is consciousness and you are consciousness, so everything believes that what? That everything is matter and I am matter, and consciousness is a byproduct of this body matter, this matter body. So everybody is misguided by Maya to believe that, you know, the duality is real. You understand? And if it's real, it means the world of matter is real. And this body of matter is real. And then they come to the mistaken conclusion that consciousness is the mind, and the mind is a byproduct of the brain. So everything was reversed. You understand? So this is what we call samsara. It's a belief that duality is real. When the objects are real, the world is real, it calls individuals to run to gain objects and run to avoid objects as a means to resolve oneself, to complete oneself, to feel secure, happy, satisfied, content, and so on. We do that by running. Okay? It calls the individuals to pursue objects in order to complete themselves, and hides from them the fact that their fundamental true nature is Purna, completion, as consciousness. It hides. Okay? Why? Because it compels the individual to identify with the body-mind complex. It's identified with the physical body, with the emotional body, with the intellectual body, with the subtle body, as we say, and on a different level, even with the Anandamaya Kosha, the individual may get caught up and identified, okay? So it is this run to gain objects makes the people tied, enslaved, and bound to samsara. It creates bondage to samsara, bondage to objects. Explaining the cause of samsara makes it possible for an individual to remove it. The purpose of all Vedanta teachings is to remove samsara. So this remove samsara is better understood as cancel. To cancel this samsara. Samsara is a psychological condition experienced only by the human jivas, the intelligent jivas. So only the intelligent jivas has this reflection in their subtle body that makes them to come to this affirmation: I exist and I know that I exist. I experience and I know that I experience. So this happens in the mind of the human jivas. And the moment that we have this self-awareness, you know, this reflect consciousness, understand? Once we have it, we immediately have this ignorance operate in our intellect. Okay, I exist, you know, and I see the world, and I have to define myself here. How can I say I exist and I cannot define myself? I'm Carrie. Just imagine the condition of all of us when we are babe and we start shining with consciousness, we see the world, and then everybody say, yeah, you and you, and then they give a name to you and say, Karen, 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 Karen. And then when you see, you saying, Karen, Karen, yes, I am Karen. And then the next thing you see is, yes, Karen is this body. And then later on, oh, Karen is these emotions and these memories. So it defines itself by the body-mind as the body-mind, you know, in its interaction with other people and with the environment. So this is what is called samsara, the belief that the world is real. No, based on this, I thought, I exist, I know, I experience, that somehow compels the individual to find a definition of itself, and one defines oneself as the body-mind, and then immediately it experiences limitation, and then down the road it understands that when I get what I want, this nagging sense of limitation is suspended. Samsara is this condition, is total ignorance that compels us to run, to remove this nagging sense of limitation. And then in due course, we understand when we get what we want, this sense of limitation is suspended. And that is called samsara. I'm trapped, I'm bound to samsara, the belief that I need to run, to accomplish, to gain, to achieve my material goals, or even my emotional goals, my spiritual goals, you know, and I will never stop, because I experience that this satisfaction, this happiness is possible, but I link it, I associate it with my achievements, my gains in life. You understand? This is called samsara. That's why we are bound to it until, of course, we come to, due to certain karmic merits, you know, spiritual punya, we come to the scripture, they say, hey, stop running, take it easy, understand why we are running. We are running because we are suffering from samsara, this fundamental ignorance that compels us to chase object, okay? So when we come to Vedanta and then we begin correcting, you know, our understanding, our perspective, our vision of the world, our relationship with the other objects, and then the mind begins what? Developing more and more sattva, because it's going to say, oh my God, all these rajas, 60% of these rajas are unnecessary. So I need to convert those 6% rajas into sattva, right? So when we come to Vedanta, we begin canceling samsara. We begin, you know, converting rajas into sattva and developing a clear contemplative mind until we understand that we do not need to gain anything to be happy and fulfilled. That is the bottom line.
Lindo,
Huh?
really understand the difference between Maya, Prakriti, and Ishvara, pure Sattva, because it seems like it is all the same, but not all the same, because I understand the difference between Maya and Ishvara in the sense that Ishvara is pure Sattva, but here it says that when the Sattvic element is pure, not mixed with Rajas and Tamas, Prakriti is known as Maya.
Yeah, we should never take all these words and all these sentences literally. We should try to understand the concept, okay? There are many different words, Sanskrit words, spirit, especially in the Vedic culture, okay? Prakriti is said to be the most essential nature of Mithya. What is the nature of something? The nature of something is that which is the most essential aspect, without which that thing is not that thing. So Prakriti is the most essential nature of Mithya, okay? And then we can say like, okay, we call this Prakriti, okay? And it's often presented as nature, okay? the nature in its potential seed form. So we have Prakriti, and then Prakriti is also said to be the medium by which consciousness reflects to produce the three gunas, okay? And then we say this, when the three gunas come into Prakriti, and then we call it Maya. Maya are the three gunas, okay? And then when we look to the Sattvic aspect of this macrocosmic medium, and then we say, now we are looking at Ishvara, pure Sattva, pure knowledge. Ishvara is said to be doing later on what? Although it's a byproduct of Maya, okay? It comes out of Maya, it comes out of Prakriti, okay? But Ishvara, due to its pure intelligence, it's going to manage, manipulate and manage the other two energies to configure the universe, you know, to build, to constitute, to make all this. So we need to be not very much rigid and fixed on these words, but to understand the concept. Okay, we have consciousness, and then we need to find something that has produced the universe, because consciousness is not the doer, and creation requires a doer, requires a lot of action, conversions, you know, in several factors, and consciousness is one without nothing beyond itself, one without a second, okay? And then we need Maya, okay? And Maya is a combination of the three fundamental energies, okay? And Prakriti is the most basic medium on which those three energies should show up. And then we call it Maya, and then we call it Ishvara, and then we call Jiva coming out of this you know, unfoldment of these energies.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
So now we're going to look into creation by stages. Huh? Yeah, this teaching shows how samsara is caused. Samsara is the belief, we saw that. So there is he is saying how samsara is caused. Samsara is something else, but creation it refers mostly to the universe. You know, creation, manifestation, it refers to the universe, how the universe is manifest, and that's what we're going to look into. Okay, samsara is something else. Samsara is, as I said, psychological, emotional condition experienced by consciousness the moment the consciousness reflects in the subtle body of the human jivas. And then we have this phenomenon called samsara, attachment, bounding, you know, suffering, and so on. Okay, so just to open up, I don't know if you understand why I have opened this. So now we are talking about the creation of the universe, okay? The stage number one is knowledge, which is sattva, okay? And here, you see here it's saying predominant sattva. Why it's not saying pure sattva? Because there is no such a thing. And I mean, this book here was inspired in the lectures in the class of Swami Paramarthananda. On those days, Ramji was participating, listening to all those classes, and then taking his notes. And then he compiled this book, and he left a lot of those teaching styles of Paramarthananda in this book as well. So it says that the first stage is pure knowledge, but it's not pure sattva, really. It is predominant sattva, okay? Because once Maya comes into place, we have the three energies already mixing up. Pure macrocosmic sattvic Prakriti is a clear, bright mirror. It's called reflected consciousness, Pratibimba Chaitanya. So this is the first stage, as I said, as anticipated before. Okay? Pure macrocosm Sattvic Prakriti. So we are talking about this most fundamental nature of nature, this most fundamental reflecting apparatus, reflecting medium. So on that When pure macrocosm Sattvic Prakriti is clear, it becomes a bright mirror on which consciousness reflects, okay? And this consciousness is called Pratyabimba Chaitanya. It reflects the most clear, the most bright, you know, because it's reflecting on the aspect of Prakriti, which is most Sattvic. It's Sattva predominant, predominant Sattva. Therefore, pure macrocosm Sattvic Prakriti is like a mirror, like it's a perfect mirror, you know, like those mirrors that they used to make hundreds of years ago, those English mirrors, you know, it's just perfect. So it's like a clear, bright, perfect, clear mirror. It reflects consciousness to produce what? Pratyabimba Chaitanya, which is another name to Ishvara, okay? Ishvara is consciousness reflect into Prakriti in its predominance of Sattva to create Ishvara, pure knowledge, as pure as it can be, okay? Pure macrocosmic Sattva is responsible for the knowledge which shapes all the names and forms in the entire creation. It is awareness appearing as a knower. It is the blueprint for the eternal truths, force, and laws, the tattvas, that structure the creation. The three gunas, the five elements, the living beings, jivas, etc., karma, and the laws governing the human experience. It knows everything. It's not responsible for evil because it's not mixed with the concealing power of Varuna and the projecting power of Vikshepa. It's very interesting when we say that consciousness reflect on pure Sattva, produce Ishvara, and Ishvara is not responsible for the evil because Ishvara is pure Sattva Guna. It's when Rajas and Tamas comes into place, and then we are subject to a lot of tendencies, and many of those tendencies are going to be in violation to the very laws that structure and sustains Mithya. And then as a result, we have all the suffering we see in the world, all the evil and so on. And we're gonna begin from this stage one knowledge, predominant Sattva, next week, next Monday, the same time. And we are going to go from there, okay? So does anybody have anything to say?
That was interesting.
Interesting is, I am always careful with this word, interesting. Okay, Karen.
Way it's put together. Yeah.
In a good way, okay, excellent, okay. So we meet again next.
Alindo, did we establish what the two kinds was in verse 15? You said nature Prakriti, composed of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, is a subtle inert form of consciousness that is capable of reflecting awareness. It is of two kinds. Did we establish what the two kinds?
No, I'm going to do. I believe it's Varuna and Vikshepa, but I'm surprised that it was thrown there without any elaboration. You know. Yeah. Nature Prakriti is composed by Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. It's a subtle inert form of awareness that's capable of reflecting awareness. It is of two kinds. Now I'm going to do some research. I'm going to look into the book. I think the book here is the same book there, although there is a slight difference between the printed one and the. Yeah, let me see here very quickly. No, you know, I mean, the only way I'm going to see him really what the verse, because this is the verse written by Vidyaranya, and in these commentaries of Ramji, because Ramji is the one who had compiled and edited, there is no elaboration on this passage on the very, very verse that says that this Prakriti is of two kinds. I suspect which it is of Varuna and Vikshepa, okay? It's a subtle inert form of awareness that's capable of reflecting, and when it reflects, I don't know. What I have to do is I have to go into my library and listen to Paramarthananda unfolding the verse 15, and then I let you know next week. Okay?
Okay, thanks.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, my friends. We meet again, Ishvara willing. Much love. Arrivederci. Till next time.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Good night. Goodbye.
Goodbye.